You see, the Bible tells us in Galatians 6:7, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever man sows, that he will also reap. Whatever man sows, that he will also reap. Now that happens to be in the New Testament. It is a law. It's one of the laws of the New Covenant. It was initially instituted in Genesis and again established in the New Covenant. There are several laws in the New Covenant that we need to be aware of. One, the law of love. The Bible calls faith a law. And the law of seed time and harvest is part of the New Covenant. Words are laws. When you speak, they come to pass if you believe it in your heart. Jesus said in Mark 11:23, most assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will come to pass, he will have whatever he says. So the law is, if you believe it and you say it, you will have it. So be careful. Years later, things happen in our lives that cannot be reversed because laws were instituted long ago. It could be a law of seed time and harvest. It could be a law of words. But if we're not aware of what's going on, when these problems start coming, we'll wonder what on earth is happening. So we need to be aware of these problems, and we need to start sowing good seed in our lives. Amen? That's why you have blessings and problems in every person's life. Because you have the harvest of the bad words, the bad statements of faith, and we have the harvest of bad seed coming up, which we call weeds in our garden. And then we've got the carrots, or the good seed that we've been planting by good deeds and by good words of faith. And so we have blessings and curses coming up in our lives, family. We need to be aware of why these things happen so that we can cut back on doing the wrong things and do the right things. Amen? Now, I'm going to show you that there is hope. There is hope, no matter how bad things are for you, even if you are responsible for your own demise, there is hope. Okay, hang on, Tiger, don't get too concerned. Let's see what happens. Now, so, say this, among my everyday decisions are some that are final and irreversible, and I choose. And the moment passes, and I seal my destiny. You see, among our everyday decisions are some destiny-defining decisions. For example, when I chose a blue tile this morning, I did not have to fast and pray for this decision. I know that there are no consequences to this decision. But there are some decisions among our everyday choices that are destiny-defining decisions. And we need to recognize them when they come along. And those we need to pray about and be sure that we know the voice of God and make God-guided choices. Because if we make choices that are not God-guided, we could end up suffering the consequences of bad harvests, which we don't want. Amen? God will always guide us into blessing, prosperity, health, in every realm of life He wants to promote us. And so God will bless us as far as we allow Him to bless us. We are His children. He loves us desperately, but He can't bless us beyond which we allow Him to bless us. Do you understand that, family? All right, now. So, Nathan the prophet is about to explain to David what he will reap because of the bad seed that he has sown. 2 Samuel 12 verse 10. Let's follow with me up on the screen from the New Living Translation. From this time on, the sword will be a constant threat to your family. All right, watch that. Nathan says, because of what you've sown, the sword will be a threat to your family. Because you have despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. Because of what you have done. Watch that in verse 11. Because, David, of what you have done, I, the Lord, will cause your own household to rebel against you. Now, this looks like God's doing this to David. I need to point out to you here that in the Hebrew, we have a passive verb and we have a causative verb. But in English, we only have a causative verb. And so when the Hebrew uses a passive verb, the translators translate that in the causative sense. So, in fact, that is supposed to read, because of what you've done, I, the Lord, will allow your own household to rebel against you. God is saying, I didn't cause it, but I can't stop it. It's the law of seed, time, and harvest. Because whatever a man sows, that he will surely reap. Amen. Are you following me? All of this is in the passive sense, but translated in the causative. So bear that in mind as I read it. I will give your wives to another man. And he will go to bed with them in public view. He will go to bed with your wives in public view. Remember that. You did this secretly, but I will do it to you openly in the sight of all Israel. Now, David had over 300 wives. That would have kept him busy. His son Solomon had over 700 wives. Now, it's taken me 34 years to get my wife trained the way I like it. And I'm almost there. I guess another 34 years and I'll have my mission complete. However, I could not imagine trying to train 300 wives. So he must have had a real problem on his hands. Nevertheless, one of these wives had two children, Absalom and Tamar, and one of the other wives had a son named Ammon. And Ammon fell head over heels in love with his half-sister Tamar, and he wanted to marry her. Now, he never asked David for permission to do that, which would be rare if he had granted it. But it wasn't something that never happened, because we know that Abraham and Sarah was half sister and brother, right? And so it's not something that never happened, but it was very rare. Nevertheless, because he felt that he could not marry Tamar, he raped her, and then David did nothing to correct Ammon for raping Tamar. So her full brother, Absalom, decided to do something about it, and he murdered his half-brother, Ammon. Then he had to flee the country, and for 3 years he lived in a distant land. Finally, his father David said he could come back home, and when he was reinstated with his father and living back in the land of Israel, he decided to buy a bunch of white, big, strong stallion horses to pull a chariot, and he paid for and hired 50 men to run out in front of the chariot, shouting out to everybody they went past, "Hail Prince Absalom." And then he would drive with his chariot early in the morning to one of the gates of the city of Jerusalem. And while people were coming in, and some of them were coming to see the king to have their cases judged and evaluated, when they saw Prince Absalom, for example, let's say Fred Bloggs was arriving, he would bow down before Absalom, and he would pick him up and say, "Don't bow before me." And he would hug him and say, "Well, what is your problem?" And he would say, "This is my problem that I'm coming to see the king about." And then Absalom would say, "You have a strong case. You have a very strong case. If only I were a judge in the land, and people could come to me with their problems, and I would give them justice. If only I were a judge in the land." And so then you can imagine that Fred Bloggs went to the king, and if the King David had sided with Joseph instead of Fred Bloggs, then Fred Bloggs goes home that night and he speaks to his family and he says, you know, King David found me guilty and Joseph innocent, and I'm really not happy about that. He says, I explained this whole thing to Absalom and he saw my point of view. He said I had a strong case. If only he were the judge in the land. And after 4 years of sitting every single day at the gate of the city, he had won the hearts of all of Israel, stolen them from David. They were supporting King David, but now they're supporting Absalom. And we must understand this, that Absalom's very existence is because of his father David. The fact that he even could come back, the fact that he's alive and not executed, is because of his father David. Now he's undermining his father's authority. We call that the spirit of Absalom, where somebody undermines the authority of the person they serve or are paid to work for. And they do this by getting others that are paid to work for them or others who support them to turn their hearts away from their loyalty to the one that they are supposed to serve. And so they get the support of these people away from the one they should be serving to them, the spirit of Absalom. In fact, the spirit of Absalom is more than just the spirit of Absalom. It really is the spirit of Lucifer. Because that's exactly what the devil did. He said, I will exalt my throne above the stars of the north. I will sit on the throne of the Most High God. I will be as the Most High God. Did he have a rude awakening? And today, he tries to take everybody's hearts away from serving God. He still has the same agenda. He will try and take you away from serving God if he can, to serving him. He perverts everything he can to stop our faithfulness to God.
Thank you for watching Dr. Theo's YouTube channel. We will continue to offer encouraging and life-changing highlights from Dr. Theo's past, present, and future series and messages. Please take the time to like and share the videos. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.